All right. Today is going to be the first day I use the lift. Oh, what a pleasure. Now, this is a 2009 BMW 335i, and I've been charged with taking care of it, and I've done a very good job. Now, it's been modified. I get that. It's got a tune, it's got a juice box, and all that cool stuff. But one of the things I really like to make sure is done every year is oil filter and oil. Now, I get my stuff from FCP Euro. I just like them. Good service. This is a filter I'm using. I tend to always want to use a cap that's designed specifically for the housing. I don't see any reason to screw this up. It's much cheaper to get one that actually fits than it is to get one that doesn't fit and then screw it up. And then we just crank this sucker off. Now the car's hot. Everybody likes hot oil. I don't. I just had to fire the car up and get it up on the lift. And they say that you should break this free so that air goes from into the oil cartridge location. And then when we get the thing up on the lift, it will drain easier. Whatever. Now, everybody says, oh, you got to get the car hot, got to get the oil hot. Well, I figure if it's 30 weight, yeah, it pays. It definitely makes it faster and easier to flow out. And if I was running a business, yeah, it would make sense. Get it hot. Car's going to come in hot anyway. You might as well do it that way. I don't like hot oil. I think it's a pain in the butt. And given that we're using multi-viscosity oil like 5W40, yeah, I guess it does flow faster, but it's 75 degrees outside. It's 5 weight. It's going to flow well no matter what temp it is. So everybody has a little difference of opinion. Now, clearly BMW, in only the way a BMW can do it, didn't put a dipstick on this car. So normally I would try to suck the oil out through the dipstick, but I can't do that. So it has to be lifted. Que sera, it's a German thing. Not all German cars. So the next thing you're going to see is underneath the car, draining the oil, and we'll come back. All right, first arm on the lift with a car. Gotta hope it goes right. Lifts are so nice. It's just awesome. I've had to put cars up on jack stands my entire career, and only through the use of lifts with a friend Mike and my son Charlie have I discovered that, oh God, this is so much easier. As you can imagine, it's nice and level. It makes oil changes easy. It makes everything easier, including and not limited to diff oil changes, differential, and transmission oil changes, because the car is level. If you put it up on jack stands, you don't know if the car is level or not. You do your best. I'm not sure how important it is, but details always matter. As you can tell, the garage was built so that we have plenty of space so I can leave the hood up and not smash the hood. And we're just humming right up. Yes, I'm having fun. But, you know, that's the purpose of life, is to have fun. Everybody gets so serious. And I'm one of them. Don't get me wrong. I also get serious. But the car is going up. I'm loving it. If something goes terribly wrong, I have a video of it, which I'll get to review as life goes on. By the way, this 335i is a beast. It's rear-wheel drive. It's got, I think, the N64 engine, twin turbo, juice box, water methanol. It is violently fast, and at the same time, incredibly cool and quiet and smooth when you need it to be. So I'll be back. All right, the car's on the lift. No big deal to anybody who has a lift. But the key issue is making sure that these safety locks are where they belong. You see these big cutouts here. As it goes up, this clicks. And when you lower it down, it actually secures in these little locks on each corner. And since this is a new lift, hasn't really been used, kind of like to make sure everything's working as planned. before I go underneath this 4,000 pounds of brain-crushing steel. So we got a good lock there, and we have a good lock there. Yes, and this is to keep me from driving off the edge of the lift, but I already have wheel chocks on it to begin with. You know, it's belt and suspenders, baby. Want to make sure that cars in park, wheel chocks are in place. You've done everything you can to avoid that moment of disaster. Now I have the oil drain pan in place, and yes, I bought a professional system because trying to get a drain pan up to this height, I said screw it. And I've got a lot of cars to drain oil on. But one of the things nice about having a lift as opposed to jack stands is you can just look around and see if there's any oil dripping. And people will always tell you that the one thing that they like about BMWs is they always leak oil. And so I'm just looking around, nothing obvious coming out. Transmission looks good. Nothing leaking there. Yeah, better get it back a little bit. There, that's better. Nothing leaking there. Exhaust looks good. I'm not going to grab it to see if it's loose because it's hotter than stink. Suspension looks good. No leaks. Just look around, see if there's any leaks. Anything coming out? Nothing. It's all looking pretty good. Walk down the exhaust. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who can fix all this stuff. I freely admit that. That is just who I am. But I do enjoy the hobby aspect of cars and the self-taught nature. It reminds me of when I was practicing medicine. I look at mechanics, guys who work on cars, ladies who work on cars, as being just like a physician. They're dealing with a complicated system, and somebody comes and says, X, Y, and Z is happening. Here's the diff, no leaks, changed the fluid on that a couple of times. CV joints look good. But they have to figure out what the complaint means. Someone says, hey, X and Y is happening. It's making noise. Well, some people, car people, who don't really have a lot of experience with automobiles, will give you explanations much like patients can do. They're not doctors, they're not nurses. They don't know how to describe things. The exhaust looks good, no obvious leaks. So they have to take the history they're given, then their experience with the mechanical aspects of the car, and say, hey, listen, I have a rough idea what's going on, and then they have to explore it. Same thing in medicine. Now, a lot of people will poo-poo that and say, oh, it's much harder to be a doctor. Well, in some ways it is, but it is still very similar. So I'm gonna put the wonderful light there, grab the screwdriver. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah, I've got this up too high. Let's see if I can still screw it around. This is the area for the drain plug. Yeah, it's not gonna work. I'll be right back. One nice thing about this car, the BMW 335i, it's 2009, it's this cool little access panel. And there's the oil drain pan plug. And you can see it's got a copper washer. I have a replacement for it. And we will be draining the oil soon. But no obvious leaks, nothing tremendous. And on BMWs, leaking oil is kind of part of the program. So next I'll get a wrench. We'll pull that off and we'll drain the oil. Now, for those of you with really observant eyes, this is a huge oil pan, and it's actually an oil pan on top of the one that comes with the unit. My nickname is Oil Spot. A good friend of mine, Mike, has called me Oil Spot ever since I've known him, because if I can get oil on something, I can get oil on it. So that explains why there's cardboard underneath the drain as I'm draining the oil, because my nickname is Oil Spot. Now, one of the things I make sure I do, this is a 17 millimeter wrench, pulling the oil drain plug out. Oh man, already pre-loosened it. Is I make sure I have the torque specs for these plugs ahead of time. Because nothing is worse when you're halfway through a project and you don't know how to tighten it because you don't have the spec. And the last thing you want to do as someone like me with not a lot of experience is over tighten something. That's why my nickname is Oil Spot. If I can miss an oil drain plan, man, I do. The oil looks great, as you would expect on a car that gets an oil change every year and probably gets driven a couple of thousand miles tops. But there's the oil, so I saved the floor. And we'll let it drain. Of course, it's hot. Plug will sit there, as it always does, and just let it do its thing. Now, the torque specs for this car, 18 foot-pounds for the oil drain plug, and for the oil filter cap, it's 18 foot-pounds. I know it ahead of time before I start, so I'm not trying to get the project done without knowing all the specs. And life is good. All right, I like the MAN filters. Why? They're made in Germany. They're original equipment manufacturer. You can see it comes with 3 seals. We'll get to that when we're on top. But one area that's always struck me as odd is I know people who insist upon using this one-time use only copper gasket. It doesn't make any sense. If you look at it real close, you can see it's beat up. It's been torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. People say, oh no, I can reuse it. Why? Why would you reuse it? The filter kit comes with a new one. Why would you get so lazy that you would reuse something that when it leaks, you have to put the car back up. You have to replace it. Oil drains out. What a pain in the butt just because you feel like being a little lazy. Don't be lazy. Put a new copper gasket back on. Life is good. Torque it down, in this case to 18 foot-pounds, and rest assured that you're not going to get a little teeny weeny leak because that's just a pain. All right, drain plug is torqued in at 18 foot-pounds, and one thing I've learned is always hit what you've done, this area, with a little brake clean. Why? Because, well, it cleans it, obviously. No. The reason you do that is so that if there's any seepage or leakage, you know that it came after you tighten the plug. Because if you think, geez, I think it's seeping, you didn't clean it with brake clean, then you're going to say, well, was it because of residual oil on the plug? Well, if you clean it, which is easy to do, you don't have to question anymore. You've cleaned it. If there's leakage, it's because you did something wrong. And it makes life so much easier. Doing oil changes is not a profit center for mechanics unless it's synthetic. So why waste your time doing it twice? I like doing it because it's one of the few things I can do. And 2, I really do a good job. Not that it makes any difference, but I'm very careful. I look around the car. I just enjoy doing it. It's my new hobby. Well, the bottom end is drained. Now we're going to do the filter. Remember, my nickname is Oil Spot. And that means that I can get oil anywhere that is humanly possible. You see the little green gasket, and there'll be another gasket up here. It's a little hard to see, but it's black. It blends in. That comes in the kit with the filter, which is why it's always nice to get these nicely done German filters, because it comes with all the O-rings and gaskets you need. They're pretty easy to take off. You can use a screwdriver. You can use one of these things, which you see there's the green one, which goes there, and there's the black one, which goes there. And just do it. I've also seen people say, well, I'll just reuse it. Why? You're just going to throw this away. You don't gain anything from it. You don't make any money. This engine, if it goes bad, what, 6, 7 grand? And that'd total the car. So just do it right. And that's one of the nice things about doing your own oil changes. If you know what you're doing and you're paying attention, you'll actually do a really good job. All right, green one, black one. Green one, black one. The old ones have been removed. They were in fine shape. They were supple. I've lightly coated it with oil, which you see everybody recommend. I made sure this got in the groove and is lightly coated with oil. I always check to make sure the filters are the same. You know, you're supposed to take a look in the filter material and see if there's any schmutz or metal or anything like that. Well, I change mine so often that it would be unbelievable. And you can see this is an HU whatever, and this is an HU 816. That's an 816. So they're the same. They physically look the same. They're the same height. Don't get in one of those situations where you assume the filter's the right filter. Suddenly you realize that after you've got it on, it's not working out well. So I'm going to reinsert the filter into the cartridge. All right. We'll be good. Filter elements inside the plastic cartridge head. That's the filter I used on this 2009 BMW 335i. I've got this set at 18 foot-pounds. And one of the nice things about having a cap that fits perfectly is that when you start to torque it, there's no slip, slop, or anything else. Now, I did hand tighten the cap before I started torquing it because I want the threads to go in nice and even. I don't want things to get stripped. It just doesn't make any sense to do it otherwise. At least it doesn't for me. Now, obviously, that's the rubber seal on the top of the cap. Started hitting some resistance. And there we are, 18 foot-pounds. And we're good. It comes off. It fits beautifully. We've got this nicely secured. Since my nickname is Oil Spot, I clean it up. I didn't drip much oil. Didn't drip any oil at all. So now we're going to go to the filling stage, which is really boring. But I do use a funnel. And I do filter here. Because remember, my nickname is Oil Spot. Meaning if I can drip oil somewhere, I will drip it there. It's just who I am. So using a funnel just makes life so much less messy. Now, a lot of people will look down into the valve train. And I can see the benefit to that. You can see that it's nice and clean. There's no varnish. There's no gook or gum. So this really tells you from this limited view that this engine is really over-serviced. I mean, it is pristine. But like I said, oil changes are really cheap compared to engine repairs. And so there's no reason to scrimp on oil changes unless I think you're a moron. Anybody who says, oh, I'd like to go 5,000, 6,000 miles on an oil change. Well, okay. And in 60, 70, 80,000 miles, when things go terribly wrong, you may sit there and say, geez, I wonder if a couple of extra oil changes would have made a difference. I'm here to tell you it would have. But you decide how you want to spend your money. $6 or $7 grand on an engine, or a couple of $500 extra for oil changes. Your call. My philosophy is it's easier to change oil than it is to change an engine. And guess what? When you get a new engine, you get new oil. All right, you gotta love BMW. Everybody else has an oil stick. Oh, no, BMW can't use an oil stick. They have this little control. You have to hit it up, and there's oil. Then you hit it there, and then you get to read it off the dash. So you can tell that the oil is max, which is good. I only put 6 quarts in, and that's good. You don't want to overfill a car. There's never an advantage to overfilling it. So we're now at 63,730 miles. The oil level is good. Car's idling beautifully. We'll step outside, make sure there's nothing dripping or draining or doing something weird underneath the car. I doubt it, but we'll take a peek. Yeah, it's a little dark in there. Nice and smooth and mellow, just like you would expect for BMW. No obvious oil. It's nice and warm. Another successful oil change.